I'm gonna send my hosting capabilities to you, John, wherever you went on my screen. There you are. Okay.
All right, my slides should be popping up then, I think, hopefully.
Yes, I see
I'm
it.
upbeat, right?
Sweet. All right, well, thank you, Samantha, for the opportunity and the sharing of the State of the Air report a month ago. State of the Air is a report we put out once a year, so happy to kind of talk about trends and that kind of stuff too. But first off, I'm John Hunter. I'm the Senior Director of Clean Air with the American Lung Association. I'm also the Acting Coordinator for Southern Colorado Clean Cities Coalition. The Clean Cities Coalition is a national effort coordinated by the Department of Energy that is implemented through local coalitions such as ours. It is kind of focused on promoting alternative fuels and doing other means of reducing petroleum use, such as increased use of technology and other sort of cleaner mobility kind of options. So hand in hand, the two programs kind of work well together in that cleaner fuels obviously means cleaner air, and cleaner air is obviously good for lungs. So quick basis of things. Let me see if I can advance my slides at the same time. There we go. All right. As mentioned, the State of the Air report is a report that the American Lung Association has been doing for about 20 years. Its foundation is really the air quality index that gets put out there for both ozone and particulate matter around the country. This is using data from air monitors all across the country. I imagine most people are pretty familiar with the AQI, but just as a refresher, as air pollution increases, you kind of move farther down this chart in the color coding areas. This is set up so that when you hit the threshold for a pollutant in the Federal Clean Air Act, for ozone, for example, being 70 parts per billion, is about the time you go from 100 to 101 and switch up to the orange category. That's really where air quality starts to have impacts on people who may be more susceptible to air quality issues, such as the elderly or people with respiratory conditions, young children, those kind of folks, people with pre-existing medical conditions. And the worse your air quality gets, the darker the colors kind of go. So this is really kind of the basis for how we do a letter signing process to create the State of the Air report. This is kind of a closer look. We use 3 years of data when we're creating letter grades for an area. In this newest report, it was data from 2016, 2017, and 2018. There's a little bit of lag time as all the data from around the country gets compiled and verified by the EPA and put together. But essentially, we go through and count up every time you've had an orange day or a red day or a purple day, and start assigning points, and then create a 3-year average. So you can see the grades on the right side of the screen where, you know, if you never have a day that's out of the green or yellow, you'll get an A grade. If you have a couple over the 3-year period, you'll get a B grade, and so on until you head up, you know, 10 or more days or some really bad air quality days over 3 years, and you end up failing, all that kind of stuff. I will mention that this is slightly different than what the EPA uses for assessing whether or not a community is in or out of non-attainment. They have a process for throwing out bad air quality days that are related to weather or wildfire smoke from far away, things like that aren't necessarily in control of a local community. Our report really focuses on lung health impacts for a community, so it doesn't have those kind of exclusionary events. So it is possible to get kind of a bad grade in our scoring, but not necessarily go into non-attainment, though the two tend to be somewhat associated. I will also preface this with, we assign letter grades for counties that have air quality monitoring. Not all counties do though. So Teller County, for example, doesn't have any air quality monitoring during this time period. So we don't have grades for that, but I will talk about Park and El Paso right quick. Park County does not seem to be monitoring any longer, but did have both ozone and particulate monitors going on during the 2016-2018 time period. As you can see, they did okay. Particulate matter is actually pretty good throughout the state for the most part. But there were a couple of days in the time period that Park County had orange days for particulate matter. I'm gonna guess those were probably related to wildfire, just based on the fact that it looks like they kind of occurred in early September at one point, which is not traditionally when you'd expect a lot of particulate matter to build up. Ozone is kind of similar, where it's C grade is not terrible, it's not what you want, but it's that could be roughly one orange day a year, or kind of just average out like that, and get you into a C grade. So it's not horrible, but it's not fantastic. Since this time, I think they've taken out the air monitor, or at least it doesn't seem to be reporting data anymore. So I imagine this will probably be the last report for a while that we have a complete grade. We do sometimes give incomplete grades, things like that. The one other assessment that you'll find in the State of the Air report, if you look into it on the website, is stateoftheair.org, is a measurement for the annual particulate level as well. Particulate matter has both a 24-hour standard as well as an annual average. So for the annual average, we just give a pass-fail kind of grade, and all the area is considered passed. So that's good news. It's really El Paso County that got the big glaring F this year for our grading system. And you can see it's had some pretty good trends over the last many years for the chart on the right, but it was the 2018 data that we'll take a little closer look here in a moment, but 2018 really had a number of days that pushed the average up pretty far. So overall, I mean, you can see good progress from time in the past, maybe somewhat relevant to our last conversation. I don't know if you noticed in the sort of middle section, that 2008-2010 report really kind of dipped down low. I don't know how much of it's attributed to the fact that would have been during the recession, the Great Recession, and a lot of travel and things like that was known to go down during that time period. So you would have seen less vehicle travel and less petroleum use during that time period. So that may be part of a factor for influencing ozone there. But I also don't know what kind of weather patterns were going on at the time and things like that. So bad news is ozone pretty high, and we'll take a more look at that. The good news is particulate matter is really pretty good. In the case of getting the B here, I think it was 1 day, 1 year and 1 day the next year. Again, probably wild smoke related, given that it occurred kind of, I think, late summer, early fall. The really, I guess, good news of all of this, not totally reflected on this chart, is Colorado Springs did end up in our top 25 for the cleanest cities on the annual particulate matter list. So as an annual average goes, the particulate levels are really quite low, and that's really good news. In particular, as it relates to the current COVID-19 issues. For those who might have seen reference to a study done by Harvard that found susceptibility to COVID-19 was a little higher in areas with higher long-term air pollution. It was that annual average particulate matter levels they used to kind of do that assessment. So Colorado Springs having a very low level is good news. Not to start competitions, I will say Pueblo's was lower, but still being in the top 25 is a good thing at number 22 on the list. So real quick, want to take a big look at like data from the last 20 years. Each row on this chart is kind of a look at the whole year of ozone levels and whether or not they're green, yellow, orange, red. So each little day is a bar on that line. And again, this current state of the air report was looking at 2016 through 2018. And you can see that 2018 had a high number of orange days that you haven't seen really for a while before that. If I recall, 2018 was a pretty hot year in general throughout the country. Through 2016 to 2018, the State of the Air report found much higher ozone levels nationally. Not coincidentally, 2016 to 2018 were some of the hottest years on record. The part of the way ozone is developed is really reacting in hot summer days when the sun shines out and the nitrogen oxides are coming out of tailpipes and VOCs are coming off gasoline and other sources. That all reacts in the atmosphere, and after a little incubation time can form ozone, which is also part of the reason, like the last discussion was about measuring particulate matters at Colorado College, but ozone levels tend to be highest. These monitors tend to go off in Manitou Springs or the Air Force Academy and other areas where there's some incubation time between where the pollution is probably emitted and having that atmospheric reaction. But that's in general why you see a lot of the orange days tend to be in that kind of July, August time period for the most part, because that's when it is hot and sunny and you get the reactions. So on the promising front, the 2019 data, which was not yet reflected in the State of the Air report, looks very good. It obviously still needs to be fully vetted and prepared, but that would seem to signal that next year's State of the Air report letter will be getting a little bit better. 2020 obviously remains to be seen. If it's a hot, dry, sunny year, it could really influence things. But on the other side of the coin, I guess, is if travel restrictions kind of remain in place or people just drive less this summer, they may have that may help, I guess, counter some of the ozone season, and it may result in lower air pollution overall as well. So that's really kind of my last slide. I got contact info on the next page, I think, if anybody wants it, but happy to take questions and that kind of thing.
I have a quick question. So you mentioned earlier in one of your earlier graphs that you saw a lot of wildfires in September. So you don't take into consideration exceptional events like other data sources might?
We don't for our grading because it really comes down to, what is the impact on the lungs. So the EPA does kind of rule some of those kind of activities out when they are deciding if a region is put into non-attainment or not. But we really wanted to look at what people are experiencing with their everyday life. So yeah, so the orange days and that kind of stuff just show up if they're orange, regardless of why. On the plus side, you don't get a lot of, there's only 1-2 red days out of this 20 years of data. So it's not super high air pollution wise compared to places like California, but could be better. I will also preface this, I guess, just because I'm a downer, I guess, that this standard is set on 70 parts per billion for ozone. The last time the EPA was revising the standards, the American Lung Association did advocate for a lower level being set, so that some of these yellow days would probably be orange on a different scale if we had prevailed in, I guess, getting that lower standard. So I do think there's still health effects occurring on some of these yellow days, but particularly from a regulatory standpoint, we're sort of keeping ahead of just barely ahead of the curve, but on the good side for now.
Any other questions for John? Okay, I have one more. So are you, John, or the American Lung Association, what are you going to do with this data in the report? Are you simply just information sharing? Are you going to provide recommendations? I guess, what is the next step now with the State of the Air report?
Yeah, One of the big purposes of the state of the art report is to kind of try to generate these conversations. You know, it often takes, you know, a community getting that F grade to really help, I guess, demonstrate that the air quality needs to maybe be a little higher on some people's minds. You know, in the report, it does kind of talk about some of the kind of national trends for what's behind some of this data. As mentioned, 2016 to 2018 were very warm years, and I don't think we're on a trend to stop getting warmer right now. So ozone will be a growing issue. We definitely encourage people to use this data to sort of inform their community discussions as much as possible. We've seen a number of organizations use it outside of you know, our I guess particular policy agendas or anything. I know it's the letter grades have been part of the conversations about oil drilling in Weld County and other places like that as well. So the you know, the data is all publicly available information. It's really just the report is designed to help kind of simplify it and make it a little more accessible for folks. So we definitely encourage people to use it as widespreadly as possible and to look up their own counties. And we'll obviously use it as part of our conversations to talk about why Colorado Springs should be concerned about achieving cleaner air, particularly in the summertime. And also celebrate the fact that the particulate matter is very low, and that does mean good things for what is happening in the region.
Great. Any other questions or comments for John before we move forward? Hearing or seeing none. All right. And it looks like John already made me the host. So let me just share my screen real quick. All right. So you guys should be able to see the agenda. So next is a discussion between all of us that are attending today regarding a Aqtc committee update. It feels like forever ago, but we met in person in February. We discussed revitalizing this committee with new membership to include representatives from all of our member jurisdictions, as well as membership from organizations who may be impacted or work with air quality. So for example, we talked about local universities like UCCS, public health organizations, local area businesses, things like that. There was a lot of discussion between the PPACG board and PPACG staff regarding this membership update. There was a lot of back and forth with edits and revisions. But at the May Board of Directors meeting, they agreed to allow 3 at-large members to join the committee, but they will be non-voting. The 3 that they chose to keep were the environmental interest groups. So 1 environmental interest group, a public transit organization, with the exception that the City of Fountain Public Transit and then the Colorado Springs Public Transit, so Mountain Metro, they switch off membership. So I believe in our bylaws, it says that our membership lasts every 2 years. So for the first 2 years, it'll be either the City of Fountain or Colorado Springs, and then they'll flip-flop. And then they either want a business group or a chamber of commerce to also be represented on Aqtc. They also sent in nominations for jurisdictions that had a vacant seat. So when I pull up our current roster, let's see here, sorry, 1 second. This is everyone that I've listed down, but we did have a lot of vacancies. So I'm working with the board to get those nominations. And like I mentioned earlier, we have a few nominations that are attending today's meeting. So once we get those vacancies filled, all members, including those who have been active in this last year, you all will be officially appointed at the June Board of Directors meeting. This gives membership terms an official start date. I wasn't here when you all were brought together, but I think it was just kind of brought up hastily just because in the 2019, before I was here, it was the start of ozone season, and we realized that we really had to get this group together, but there was no formal process that went through our board of directors. So that's part of the reason why I'll be bringing this list to the board of directors in June. And that way it gives all of you an official start date and a membership date, so we can kind of make this process of the committee similar to our other committees that we have here at PPACG. Next month, along with our new members, we'll also begin the discussion of electing a chair, a vice chair, and a second chair. So if you have any interest in helping take leadership and ownership of this committee, please let me know. We'll also discuss in June the potential of moving our regular meeting date and time to ensure maximum participation. We will be having, a large group of new members, so ensuring that maybe the fourth Wednesday of each month isn't the best time for everyone to meet. So we'll talk about that too as well. I will admit that I'm a little disappointed that organizations who would make for a great voice in the committee will not be representative. So one idea that I had that I was considering is developing a community of practice program. It's pretty common, at least in my previous experience in the public health sector, to do community of practice, where folks like, the universities and businesses can informally meet. They'll meet with us in PPACG. It could be quarterly, it could be once or twice a year, whatever, just to meet with these groups that do have a voice or an interest in air quality. And they can hear updates from Aqtc and PPACG, as well as share and collaborate ideas for the Ozone Advanced program. And then that conversation from this community of practice group can be brought to Aqtc for consideration. So that's kind of my workaround for the board wanting to limit the number of members that we have on Aqtc. With that, do you all have any questions on the committee structure and membership, or am I clear?
Samantha, hi, this is Yarek from Manitou Springs. I saw my name with the voting rights as yes on your display. I don't think Manitou Springs, they revoked all this, this right. So I am happy to remain a member. I'm happy to be active, especially on this data analysis type of working group.
Yes.
And I will continue doing it, but I would like to update this table that you showed us.
Okay. I know you all, Manitou Springs has a new mayor as well, so I'll reach out to him as well and see if he has a new nomination. Thank you, Yarek. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Any other questions or comments on the committee? I'll have more information to you at the June meeting. Like I said, the board is gonna formally appoint membership. So I'll be sure to update you all at that meeting. So next on the agenda, I wanted to start a discussion on developing our planning document for the EPA Ozone Advanced program. I think some of you are aware we committed to this program in January. It's a voluntary program through the EPA. It allows us to report our ozone reduction efforts directly to EPA. To be a part of this program, they would like a planning document listing strategies that we plan to implement to reduce ozone in our region. They would like this document by January of 2021. Although the pandemic may put a slight deterrence on some of our strategies, as I mentioned earlier, we voluntarily are a part of this program. So what that means is that we do have requirements, but they're pretty loose for this planning document. It can be as full as we want it to be. So because of this, along with some uncertainty of the pandemic, it's okay if we want to start off small with this planning document. I developed a little timeline for us to kind of base this information off of and to kind of give us guidance on where we should be. So I kind of designated the summer to have research and discussion on strategies that we would like to include in our Ozone Advanced program. Once we meet for a couple times throughout the summer, in early fall, we'll take those strategies that we prioritize and start developing our ozone planning documentation. I will work with our future chairs to develop this content along with our communications program that we have here on PPACG to develop this document, and of course with Aqtc review. In November, we want to have the document pretty much finalized to begin the approval process, because that does take a little bit of time here at PPACG. We have to introduce the Ozone Advanced Program document to our committee advisory council. They have to approve it along with our board of directors. And then once we have that approval process finalized, then we can finally send it into EPA. I'm not sure if there's going to be a review process for that, and there's also no public comment, but I can reach out to our EPA rep and ensure that in case they need to see it sooner rather than later or whatever they'll need. But right now, this is just kind of a draft of a timeline that I have, and I think it's pretty doable. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this timeline? Do you feel like this is doable as well? Anyone? Maybe like nod your head. No. Ryan gave me a thumbs up. Okay, okay. All right.
I think it is.
I think it's doable too.
I think it is doable, and this is again Jarek from Manitou Springs, and this actually goes back a little bit to what John in his presentation, or you asked John how reports that he's preparing can help us to build those strategies for reducing, for example, ozone levels. As you know, we built a little dashboard application in Manitou where we observe the ozone levels as well. And then the next natural question is, so what do we do with this data? How do we translate this data into some sort of actionable, very practical items that could be presented to the local community for kind of to take like a very practical steps, and maybe collectively at the residential level to lower ozone level. But I think there will be also some items that I would categorize as a little bit more commercial or even utility level, higher level kind of efforts that may bring very significant positive effects. And I think I would point here to this integrated resource plan that our utility, local utility has. And I don't know where they are in terms of like approving it and implementing it even, but it may have a very positive impact overall on the level of pollutants and ozone including.
I agree. And like I mentioned earlier, the nice thing about having kind of the authority to develop this document is that we can put in as much or as little information as we like. I am personally on the side of the more information, the better, because if we end up going into non-attainment, this summer or next summer, at least EPA will be aware of everything that our region is trying to do to reduce air pollution. So thankfully, we do have a couple committee members that represent CSU, and I'm hoping that they'll be a part of this effort to insert some of their air quality reduction efforts that they're doing at Colorado Springs Utilities into the Ozone Advanced Program.
Yes, Sam, this is Kevin Shrewsbury with Colorado Springs Utilities. This timeline works really well for us too, as we look at the integrated resource plan, as Jarek mentioned. Kind of just give everybody an update on that. The final portfolios will be are being evaluated right now through our UPAC committee, which is our policy advisory committee to the board, the Colorado Springs Utilities Board of Directors. That will be they're going through our final portfolios right now. The portfolios are basically different scenarios that project a 30-year resource plan for the utilities. Those will be presented to utilities for consideration and their recommendation for selection in the beginning of June. And there's going to be a special utility board meeting held at the end of June to select the portfolio. So at the end of June, we should know what our selected portfolio is moving forward for our energy resource plan. And then, so this is good timing for us to be able to incorporate our next steps moving forward on how we'll be implementing that plan.
Awesome.
The other thing that we can incorporate that to this year, we will be implementing the alternative operation plan for the Drake power plant on select ozone days. It'll be the same procedure plan that we implemented last year.
Thank you, Kevin. All right.
So may I ask the question, very brief question. So Kevin, it sounds like a utilities plan for approving some version of this integrated resource plan. It wasn't changed due to the COVID-19, right? You don't expect any kind of significant impact or delays due to the coronavirus.
No, and actually the decision was supposed to be held in July, and we actually pulled that up into a special meeting in June. So we're not delayed due to COVID. In fact, we actually pulled our decision up a few weeks from the original schedule. So yeah, we're moving full force ahead with our IRP plans.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is 1:50. So we have 10 minutes left. I believe I scheduled this meeting until 2 o'clock, so I want to make sure I respect your time. The next topic that I want to talk about real quickly is the next steps for developing our ozone advance planning document. So back in April, I sent you all an email asking what strategies you would like to see either in your organization, in your community, or ideas that you have as a region. I received a lot of different awesome ideas, and I compiled it into a Google Doc. So I just kind of made a little chart there. What I would like to hear from you is what you feel would be the best way to move forward in developing and prioritizing strategies for our ozone planning document. There's a few different ways that we could do this. I could assign people into small groups, and you guys can all discuss either specific sector, whether it's transportation, energy, education, whatever. And then you can come to Aqtc either in July or August with your recommendations. I can compile a list like I have here in that Google document and work with PPACG staff and the board of directors, and they can choose priorities for us. Or we can take the majority of the next 2 to 3 meetings and just have a large open discussion like we're having now. So what do you feel would be either the most beneficial or most efficient way to come up with either more strategies, fine tune the strategies that I have listed on this document, and then prioritize what we feel would be either the most feasible or most successful for our region for 2021 in our planning document. Does anyone have a preference?
This is Ryan. I think I like the idea of just kind of prioritizing as a group over the next few meetings.
Okay.
And then I think ultimately it would have to be a recommendation to the PPACG board. Is that how I understand it?
Yes.
But I think giving them kind of the framework of what we agree on, what we think the priorities are, and having them kind of not start from scratch, I think would be good.
I agree. Does everyone else feel the same way, or is there different? I mean, it doesn't have to be any of these options too. If there's a project management strategy that I didn't think of that works better for these scenario, that's fine too.
Yeah, this is Kevin Shrewsbury with Utilities. I would agree with Ryan. I think it's better that as a committee we discuss them, and ultimately better for us to present to the board what our recommendation would be.
Any other comments, or do we all agree that we'll kind of make this strategy, these next couple of AQTC meetings, a strategy session where we have an open discussion and then bring it to the board for final approval? Since I'm not hearing any objections, and I also am a fan of that idea, I'm just going to move forward with it. So thanks everyone for your preference. I'll be sending you this Google Doc after this meeting, and I'll make you all editors. So if you have an idea or some sort of strategy that you've seen that you would like to be potentially implemented, feel free to add this to the chart. And don't be afraid to have fun with your ideas. This is a really great way to make a positive impact on our communities, which is much needed at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to really fun, engaging ideas, especially once the pandemic is over. I'm excited to do some more activities that maybe are in person, but like I keep repeating, it is a planning document. So, and there's no strict requirements. So if there are strategies that may be tougher to do during a shelter in place order, we can always move that to a planning document update with EPA or whatever. We have a lot of flexibility in what we want to do. So don't be afraid to put out some fun ideas or fun projects that we may be able to do as a committee. All right, so we have 5 minutes left. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on the PPACG outreach and education stuff that's been going on. Obviously everything moved virtual, so some plans that we had for the summer can't move forward. So for example, I was really excited to work with our area agency program that we have here. I was gonna work with them to do a senior center tour for air quality education. That's definitely a no-go, but we can always find ways to do it virtually. Or we can move these ideas to next summer when hopefully everything is settled down. I saw a lot of you participate in Air Quality Awareness Week, which is awesome. There are a lot of cool posts and publications that I'm excited to share on our Ozone Advance plan. So those will definitely go in there. I know that they're not on the line right now, but I know Fort Carson, they made a really cool like air quality newsletter and they sent me a copy of it. So that will go into our Ozone Advance program plan as well. So EPA can see that we're trying our best and working with what we got to reduce ozone in our region. With Air Quality Awareness Week, I developed a webpage with the help of our communications team here at PPACG with Air Quality Awareness Week information, and then links to the PDFs of resources that we have available, which includes our air quality report that's been finalized and is now made public. So feel free to use that within your organization or use it as a reference for data as well. And then I also want to mention too, I'm going to take John and Scott's slides that they were presenting to us earlier, and I'll be sure to send that out to the committee as well. So you'll have that available. And then I'm recording this. So then if you want to rewatch these presentations, you'll be able to do so on the PPACG website. June officially begins our ozone season. So PPACG plans on posting more on our social media pages to promote air quality awareness, as well as conduct educational webinar series as well. Are there any materials or publications that you would like to see PPACG develop? It can even be related to the pandemic. I'm willing to work with Scott and CDPHE to get something together. I know that's been a big question that I've been getting from folks, is seeing the data trends comparing the pandemic with air quality. Is there anything specifically you all would like to see or an idea? All right. That's okay. I'll be working with our communications team as well to figure out what more we can do given the current situation. With that, I'm encouraging all to promote ozone awareness within your organization, feel free to use our resources or contact me to develop something, whether it's just a social media post in the beginning of June. Yeah, whatever you can do, a little can do a lot, especially in this current climate. So with that, does anyone have any general comments, questions, announcements?
This is Ryan. One quick update is last year we were awarded from the Colorado Department of Local Affairs to proceed with an EV readiness plan for our region. So this was in close partnership with Colorado Springs Utilities. We are in the process this week of interviewing the final selection of vendors. And so we hope to have a vendor on board by mid-June, and we have until the end of next year to complete that report per the grant, but we hope to actually complete it by mid next year. But we'll definitely look for some public engagement opportunities, and I'll definitely keep the Aqtc up to speed on where we are to get some additional feedback from this group and others on how EVs can be more prevalent here in Colorado Springs and El Paso County.
Awesome. I'm excited about that project. It's gonna be really cool.
And Samantha, this is Yarek again, and I have a short update. For the last 1.5 months, I've been working on improving this dashboard application for ozone, displaying ozone levels in Manitou. And this is a side project, so it takes a little bit longer to complete this implementation, but I expect on June 12th, the new version of the application should be available, publicly available. This new version is going to be able to display the data for both ozone monitors in Manitou Springs and also U.S. Air Force Academy. And as part of the effort and this new work, it was to add a little bit more insight into the data. So I will be bringing like a summary statistics for current year, for previous year. There will be data that displays this maximum 1 hour, 4th, 8th hour average, and when it happened. So users will be able to kind of browse and search for the data a little bit easier than the current version of the application provides.
Great. And then maybe at a future Aqtc meeting, Yarek, you can present your dashboard to the new members, and then we can talk about how to display and promote the data that you're developing.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I would say this possibly could be done during our next meeting, but then the 12th, between the 12th and the 21st of the next month, there is a very little time window. If something kind of goes not according to the plan, I may need a little bit extra time. So I'll let you know, Samantha, around the 12th of June.
Perfect. Thanks, Yarek. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, it is 2:02 p.m. and I'm going to call this meeting to adjourn. The next Aqtc meeting is scheduled for June 24th at 1 p.m. Again, it'll be hosted through Zoom. As I mentioned before, I did Zoom even before the pandemic to ensure that we have participation, but as well as I continue using it until, I mean, I'd like to use it forever, to be honest. So, so it's easier for your schedules, and because it'll, you know, we'll do our air quality effort by not driving into meetings and emitting less vehicle pollution into the air. So thank you for taking the time. I'll be sure to send out this information to you once this meeting is over. So thank you all. Be happy and be healthy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You as well.